Good morning, and thank you guys for coming to our June community coffee and our legislative wrap-up. What an amazing crowd this morning. I'd like to introduce Sheila Gilchrist with Northwest Family Services to say a couple words. Thank you for having us this morning and hosting us and for having these amazing cinnamon rolls.
Two of which are going with me.
I bet we can make sure that happens.
Yeah, I was up late last night making those. So Brenda got those for us. But I'd like to welcome you all here today. I keep saying I'm the new director at Northwest Family, but I've been here since October, so I'll have to quit saying new eventually. But I'm going to use it as long as I can. But I'm glad to see such a good turnout. I think you all know what we do here, but for those of you that don't, we have LPCs that go out into our communities and work with our students. And we run grants out of this office, the TSEC grant and the Start Right program. And then we have other classes that we teach. And we're going through some funding reductions right now, so we're all working hard and everyone's doing a little more, but it's hitting us like everyone else. But we're glad to see everyone came out today, and thanks for being here.
We do have a couple of community announcements. I know the First Friday Art Walk will be July 1, and this year we'll have a farmer's market at this one, so just wanted to let everybody know if you have a product that you'd like to market at the farmer's market, that will be at the first of the month. Gulp and Gallop, I know we talk about that at every event, but I want to thank, I see there's many volunteers in this room who have helped us with this program. It's been amazing, and we continue through June 30th, so if you know of any children pre-K through 18 that would like to attend, it's a lot of fun. We go Monday through Thursday, and we're off on Fridays, but it's been pretty exciting, so spread the word. And does anybody else have any community announcements? I think Arden does.
Yes, the car club will have our cruise night on July 16th. We'll have live music and bring your car out and cruise with us. The Act One Community Theater is producing The Little Mermaid. First show was last night. We'll have performances tonight and Saturday. Once again, the Gulp and Gallop. Thank you for your volunteer work there, and that will continue through the 30th. Richard Morissette will be here Saturday night. If you'd like to hear him speak at Champs, I have tickets for that event. And the Northwest Domestic Crisis Center is having a garage sale at the Methodist Church starting today.
Does anybody have anything else?
I'll remind everybody to stay in Alva for the 4th of July. We've got a lot of festivities planned down at Hatfield Park. Best fireworks show in Northwest Oklahoma, so stick around, have a good time in Alva for the 4th.
Thank you, Rotary Club, for all your efforts for that event. Go ahead.
I would just like everybody to meet Dr. Callie Mossberg. If you haven't had a chance to meet her, say hi to her. So she's been with us a while, and her little one is getting to the point she can be in the office more. So.
Thank you, guys. And Rochelle Covington, thank you for being here today as well.
And I would like to thank everyone for coming to Northwest Family Services. We appreciate the good turnout today. And come back and visit anytime.
Let's go ahead and get our legislative wrap-up started. It's my honor to introduce Senator James Inhofe. I've spent several years attending Oshkosh and gotten to know him, and we're certainly glad you're here this morning. Thank you to Bryson.
But you're not going to Oshkosh this year?
No, not this year. So, but thank you, where'd he go, Bryson, for setting everything up and for all your hard work. So thank you. Turn it over to you.
Me? Oh,
yes.
Okay, well this thing is supposed to be Bryce and Jeff. And they said I'll start off and they can wrap up. Is that okay?
That sounds great.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, she's not going to Oshkosh. Do you all know who doesn't know what Oshkosh is? Come on, you guys. Well, anyway, this will be my 38th consecutive year to go to Oshkosh, and actually to fly in Oshkosh. And so it's the biggest air show in the world, bigger than the Paris Air Show or the London Air Show or and the rest of them. And what's happening in Oklahoma now is we're getting a lot of people attending this, and I know that several others are going to be there. I was talking to Brent yesterday, and he's going to be there with his crowd. The reason this is important is that we want to make sure everybody, in every pilot in America is up there, know what kind of hospitality we have when they come through here. Good example is Alva. You got a great airport here, and so that's a great event. I've talked to several of you about this, the reason that I'm here. I have kind of a schedule that I've kept now. I can't believe I've been in the Senate for 22 years, but I have. And the schedule is that every fifth weekend, I'll go to either Africa, Iraq, Afghanistan, or one of those. I'm the ranking member on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and we have a president who's destroying and disarming America. And so I'm over there every fifth weekend. Now, the other weekends, I come back, like last night, I got back at midnight, and I get in my plane, and I look at my thing, where have I not been for 6 months? And there it was, Alva. So we're here, and it's a good system. I've been doing so long now that I'm accustomed to it. We have a lot of things that are going on. I'm going to share a couple of things with you, and then I'd like to spend most of our time having you ask questions. I know you've already asked me a bunch of questions when I came in. You're concerned about who's going to win, what's going to happen in the big race for president, and what's going on right now. So let me just share a couple of things. In the Senate, as a reminder, I've said this before here in Alva, but in the Senate, as opposed to the House in Washington, you're a product of your committees. Every senator is on 2 committees, and then you are really, that's where you spend your time. Mine are the Senate Armed Services Committee, and that's a committee that I have been ranking on for some time, and then the Environment and Public Works Committee. Now, you guys who are interested, and particularly the ones that are interested in what's happening around the country, if you talk to Tom Buchanan, president of the Oklahoma Farm Bureau, and say what's the biggest problem facing farmers and ranchers in Oklahoma and around the country, he'd say it's nothing in the Farm Bill. It's the overregulation by the EPA. And specifically, he talks about the water regulation. They tried for as long as it's been in existence, the states have been in control of the jurisdiction of water, with one exception, that is when they have navigable water. Well, we understand that should be a federal jurisdiction. But liberals who want control of everything in Washington have been trying to take the word navigable out so that Washington would have total control. And that is the single biggest issue of the Oklahoma Farm Bureau of farmers and ranchers around the country. And of course, all that stuff falls in the jurisdiction of the committee that I chair, the Environment and Public Works Committee. Ironically, I don't always tell my poetic justice story, but somebody asked me yesterday and I'd forgotten about it. For years, in the real world, I was a builder and developer, and I was doing things that I thought Americans were supposed to be doing. I was making money and losing money and expanding the tax base. But my chief opposition all that time was the federal government, and primarily the EPA. And finally, I decided after the run of my litter, Katie was up and gone. Kay and I have been married 57 years, and we have 20 kids and grandkids. And when she was up and gone, I would sell out everything and run to try to save the free enterprise system. Now, here's the poetic justice. I now chair the committee that has jurisdiction over the very bureaucracy that tried to put me out of business for 20 years. That's poetic justice. And I have with me today Jerry. A lot of you know Jerry. He was with me. We're comparing notes coming in the last time. That Jerry Buchanan, for those of you in the room that are Republican activists, when he was the chairman, it was of Tulsa County, he was the best chairman of the Republican Party we've ever had in our history. And he still stays hitched and right in the middle of everything. So he goes with me. Now, he's a pilot, but he's a single engine pilot. He's now been with me, and I'm still a flight instructor, so he's been with me now for over 200 hours in the twin that I'm flying today. And so sooner or later, we'll get him his twin engine rig. Nonetheless, he's been a godsend to me. So anyway, the one committee I have is Environment and Public Works. That is huge because we handle not just the overregulation of the bureaucracy and are able to do something about that, but also public works. That means all of our as Bryce knows, when he was with me for, how long were you with me?
4.5 years.
Yeah, he was with me 4.5 years, then he bagged me and he got doing what he's doing now. And but he's fully aware that what we do on the public works, we passed the highway bill. And it's the first time we've had in 8 years that we've had a highway reauthorization bill. So you're going to see activity now. That was in our committee, what we're doing. WRDA bills coming up starting next week. That's Water Resources Development Act. You guys have a lot of interest in that. We just passed the chemical bill. It's called TSCA. It was a huge thing, and we had a big celebration dinner 2 nights ago on that. And that was, we had equally Democrats and Republicans on that one, because it ended up not only being something that will allow industry to know which chemicals they can use in their manufacturing, because they didn't know before, but also it's a huge thing for environmentalists too. So now and then we work together on things like that. So that's one of the committees. The other is the Senate Armed Services Committee, and I have to be very blunt, because, and people say you're being disrespectful of the president. I'm not. People have got to get out of that mindset. It was Teddy Roosevelt said, patriotism means to stand by your country. It doesn't mean to stand by the president or any other elected official, except the same degree that he stands for his country. And we have a president who's not standing up for his country. And every institution that's made America great is under attack by this president. I can tell you that. I know it. I'm there. And so we are looking at the presidential election. Well, anyway, back to the armed services. What he's done probably to the armed services is the worst of everything, but people are not aware of it. Now, if you talk to anyone who has been stationed over there, I know you have some guard units, and a lot of people from here are members. You talk to any of these guard people coming back, and they'll tell you exactly what the problems that we're having in the military now. And so our kids are not. We're doing the defense authorization bill as we speak. We'll actually pass it on. We actually pass it on Monday, and yet it's just underfunding the military because the president will veto, and we just got the most we could to keep it as veto. There's a partisan thing to let you know. Defending America shouldn't be a partisan issue, should it? I mean, you know, everyone ought to be for defending America, but it isn't. It is a partisan issue, because right now, to try to beef up and to increase some of the military spending, the Democrats right now, without one exception, in Washington, in the Senate, saying you can't add any money to military that you don't add to the domestic side too. So they're concerned now about the IRS and the EPA and all that. We're concerned about defending America. And so we have our kids over there, and they'll tell you that it's we're in the most dangerous situation as a country we've ever been. Some of us in this room are old enough to remember the Cold War. The Cold War was a piece of cake. We had two superpowers at that time. We knew what they had. They knew what we had. Mutual assured destruction meant something. It doesn't mean anything. We have people who are deranged people, like the guy running North Korea, who's developing a delivery system and a weapon of mass destruction. And we don't know how far along they are right now, but we do know anything that North Korea has. All the rest of them have, Yemen and Afghanistan and all of our enemies out there. So it's really a dangerous thing, and we're going to see before too long another major hit in the United States. You know, we suffered through this one in Orlando this last week, but I'm talking about something that could wipe out an entire city. And by the way, when we started getting concerned about that, and there's a lot of controversy over invasion of privacy with the government finding out things about people, what their telephone numbers are and all that. Well, that's confined really to suspected terrorists, and those individuals are where we have been able to stop really bad things happening. The terrorists actually had the weapon and were ready to go for a bombing of the New York subway, and we were able to stop it by getting the information. But that's how dangerous things are right now. So I'm anxious to get to the point where we're going to be able to rebuild and do a better job of defending America, and that's what one of my roles is up there. So we have a lot of things that are going on that rather than have me go into it, I'd like to just go ahead and have you just ask questions, and I'll talk about anything that you want to. Before skipping over Orlando, let me just say that the first thing that happens, and some of you in this room will agree with what some of the liberals are doing in Washington. The first thing when there's a disaster like Orlando is let's have gun control. Let's take away weapons. And I'd suggest there's only one thing to remember, and that is if you are a terrorist or you are a criminal, there's one thing that you do and that you don't do. What you don't do is follow the law. You can't pass a law that says, well, you can't do this, because there's no way to enforce that. But honest people will comply with the law. And so that's the only thing you have to keep in mind. Everything that they've come up with in trying to pass, and right now We had a filibuster, a guy from Connecticut in the United States Senate on the floor 2 days ago for 15 hours talking about how now we're going to have to do something about gun control. And so that's a big issue. You may want to talk about that, but that's always the response. It's almost as if they look for disasters to happen so they can bring their issue up again. Let's open it up, and I want to just talk about anything you want to talk about.
Senator, I'll ask you, election cycle for the Senate. Everyone's watching the presidential race, but it's important for Oklahoma that you're as chairman of a very important committee and the role that you play on the committees that you're on, with the Senate being in a Republican majority. Mm-hmm. What's the outlook? I think probably better for Republicans in 2 years than this year, but what's the outlook in keeping the Senate?
Well, now what Jeff is saying when he says it's better in 2 years, the way that works is in the United States Senate, we run every 6 years. This year, it's 2-1 Republicans having to run over the Democrats. So this is the endangered year, as a lot of people know, and as Jeff points out. But I think, I won't tell you which ones they are because that word will get back real quick, but we're going to lose 2 and maybe 3 of our seats. But we're going to pick up 1, and that's Nevada. So Republicans, unless something dramatic changes between now and the election, the Republicans will maintain a majority, and we may lose seats. Then, of course, 2 years from then, there'll be a much more enhanced majority. But we'll have a majority in the House and the Senate. The question is the White House. If I'm chairman of a club in Washington called the ABC Club. It's anybody but Clinton. And that was all during this time that we had all these 17 Republicans all running for president. I never dreamed at that time it'd end up being Trump. It didn't occur to me. Because we had so many people there that really started off with credentials that he doesn't start off with. But I look at it differently than a lot of people do. He is our guy now, and the choice is now between Hillary and Donald Trump. And I'll share something with you, and this will be a first. You might want to use this because no one is aware of this yet. There's a guy named John Bonzo. You remember John Bonzo? He used to work for me. He's Trump recognizes that he's going to have to surround himself with smart people. Now, Trump is not dumb. Sure, he doesn't know a lot of the things that a president needs to know. But he'll be surrounding himself, his vice president, his secretary of defense, his secretary of state. He's going to surround himself with people who are really smart people. But he recognizes and he says he's defined 10 areas of government that he needs to know more about. Defense, healthcare. We were talking, where's Kelly? Yeah, on the way in here about that. And so this just happened last week. They all went to Trump Tower in New York, and including John Bonzo. And the 10 of them went up to his boardroom. And 5 of them sat at the table with him, and the others sat in the background. Then they swapped, and they came up. He said, John Bonzo told me, that Trump was totally a different character altogether. He was very quietly asking the right questions and listening and trying to become a quasi-expert in all these areas. And, that's not the vision that you of behavior that you normally get when you think of Donald Trump. And he's going to have to calm down some of his rhetoric and some of the things he says. I can't believe he said what he did early on and still is the nominee. So there's something about the guy that really is, they know he's coming from the heart. And let me, confession's good for the soul. I want to share something with you that you didn't know. Bernie Sanders, everyone knows about Bernie Sanders. And probably no one a year ago has ever heard of Bernie Sanders. He is the only acknowledged socialist in the United States Senate. He's one of my best friends, and because he's not a hypocrite. A lot of the liberal Democrats, I won't say 100% of them end up getting in trouble, but a lot of them are the ones who they follow this action. They vote liberal and press release conservative. Not Bernie Sanders. He votes liberal and press release is liberal. And he is, it's coming from the heart. We had an experience 7 years ago. It was kind of fun. When Obama was first elected, the Democrats had everything. They had Nancy Pelosi in the House. They had the House, the Senate, and the White House. And I got a call from our friend Ryan Jackson, my chief of staff, and he said, "Get down to the floor quick." And I got down there right before he called a vote, and he had a bill, Jeff, before the Senate that had every punitive thing you could have on oil and gas production. Every tax thing, that it would just completely put them out of business. And we stopped it and we debated. We went back and checked later. We debated for over 2 hours. Then they called for a vote, and I won and he lost. Bernie Sanders stood on the floor after that, and these are his exact words. He said, all right, I want you to know this is what we're supposed to be doing in the United States Senate. He said, in all the years I've been in the House and the Senate, we've never had a healthy debate like this before. Now, Inhofe won and I lost, only because he's from an oil state and he knows the issue a little better than I do. But this is what we should be doing. Now, that's the kind of guy he is. And so we became friends, so friendly that about 3 weeks ago, and some of you saw it, I know, on CNN, he was being interviewed, and they said, isn't there any Republican conservative that you like? And he thought a minute, he said, yeah, Jim Inhofe. And then he hesitated and he said, you know, I don't think I did him any big favors. So anyway, that's so much for him. He's toast anyway. But he has drawn her over to the left where she really belongs in a way that's very effective, and I think that he has served the cause very well. I forgot what your question is. That's your answer. Yeah, Kelly, on the way in, you're talking about health care and all that. You know, I can't really say anything right now other than you, I'm sure, have looked at all the legislation that is out there. I'm not into the committees, as you know, that deal with that on the ground level. Nothing meaningful is going to happen until we have a new administration. And they'll say, well, wait a minute, Inhofe, you've got a Republican majority in the House, a Republican majority in the Senate. Why can't you do these things? Well, the reason is we don't have a veto-proof Republican majority. And everything that we do, like all of the overregulation, and normally if you get into rural audiences, they want to talk about all these things, the overregulation, not just the water bill, but all the rest of the things they're trying to do. There's a thing called a CRA, Congressional Review Act. And what that is it's something that if a bureaucracy tries to pass a regulation, it's easy when you have legislation because you can always vote against it and you're on record. But then what a lot of the liberal people want is to say, all right, we don't have a majority to pass it, so we'll do it by regulation. Well, that's what Obama's been doing. All these regulations, you all know that. That's well known. And so we have a Congressional Review Act, and we have passed a Congressional Review Act by not a 60-vote margin, but by right down party lines, on every regulation that he has. And of course, he's vetoed them all, and we don't have a veto. That one thing I'll say about Democrats in Washington is they're disciplined. Republicans aren't. They say, you know, Republicans are like herding cats. Well, you guys know that. The same thing's true on the state level. And so anyway, that's the problem that we have with that. And all that would change with either a change in the White House or a majority, veto-proof majority of 60. All right, you guys.
What can you tell us about the internet sales tax at the federal level and imposing it where we would collect sales tax on internet
okay.
sales?
Yeah, I was against you on the issue, but I lost and you won. And the reason I is because a long time ago I made a commitment on I would not support any increase in taxes. Now, I know all the justification, and it's history now in the Senate. It's passed the Senate. And it will be passed in the House if it isn't already. It might. I don't know where they are. Do you happen to know, Bryce?
It had not. Shabbat from Utah was still working on it.
Okay, they haven't done it yet in the House.
Yeah, Speaker Ryan hadn't guaranteed a vote yet on it.
Okay.
It's in judiciary, and the judiciary chairman's opposed to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it is passed the Senate, so I'm off the hook. Okay. And I understand that issue. I had a hard job once. I was mayor of a city, and I tell my friends in the Senate, I said, you know, you don't know what a hard job is. There's no hiding place when you're a mayor of a city. If they don't like the trash system, it ends up in your front yard, right? And it did. So, but anyway, that should become. You know more about that than I do because you're just talking about what you were aware of that it's in judiciary. I didn't know that. I just knew that it passed. And my closest friend in there is a guy who's a senator from Wyoming, Mike Enzi, and he was the leader in the other side of this thing. So it's the only time that we've been across from each other in the last 10 years on an issue.
What about the trade agreement? The what's it called? The
TPP.
TPP. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, that isn't going to really. That's one of the things that's going to have to make it. You know, once we get into a different administration, and it is significant. I mean, we have a lot of, particularly in Northwest, well, all throughout Oklahoma, in terms of what we're trying to sell and open up the markets. And right now, it's not going to happen. You could read in the paper next week that it will, and that could happen. But right now, it's not a topic for conversation in terms of trying to get it done.
Well, we don't often get the privilege of getting to do one of these with one of our U.S. senators, and it's an honor to have Senator Inhofe here, and he is here frequently in Northwest Oklahoma, particularly Alva, and it's an honor to have him join us, and it's an honor to have you serve us as long as you have to. It's tough. The political environment is tough, and I just asked the senator earlier if he'd ever seen a couple of years as challenging politically as what we're going through, and Facebook and Twitter and social media and the internet has changed a lot of what we do. We've lost a lot of civility, I think, in terms of public service. But Senator, thank you for continuing to fight and deal with all the challenges that we have. I'm going to just run through very quickly some of the things that happened at the Capitol this session. The budget got a lot of attention. The media didn't focus on a lot of the things that really did happen. Of course, a lot of the session that we were talking about, not enough focus was on the budget, and then by the end of the session it was, well, too much focus was on the budget, nothing else happened, and none of that is absolutely true. But I just want to go over some of the highlights very quickly. And before I do that, though, I just want to say thank you. This is kind of my farewell tour after 12 years. And it wouldn't have been possible without the support of so many of you in this room to have the privilege to represent Northwest Oklahoma. I think it's the most special part of our state, and it's special because of the people. And when you're born and raised here, it really is. It's an honor to get to go to the Capitol and represent this part of the state. And thank you. For a farm kid from Tacoma and Cherokee who grew up going to the Rialto, eating Taco Village food, to have the opportunity to serve as Speaker of the House is really amazing to me, and something that I will treasure for all of my life. And it wouldn't be possible without you all giving me the chance to go do this, and thank you. We have a senator who's on the ballot in a couple of weeks. It's almost over, and doing a great job for us at the Capitol.
Not all the way over.
Well, do you have a general? You don't have a general.
No, but I didn't know how you went there.
Well, four more years. But it is a sacrifice. Bryce has children at home as well, and is away. Has been willing to serve and has done a great job, and has continued to elevate into leadership. And as I said the other night, if he's not the majority leader of the Senate next year, then the leadership of the Senate's not. They really are as dumb as what House members think they are in the Senate. But he's done a phenomenal job, and look forward to his continued service for the next 4 years after his primary election in a couple of weeks. Before I get into the session, I just want to mention one other topic, just in terms of timeliness that happened last week. Was very disappointed. The governor, at the very last minute, vetoed a very critical public safety measure. Really surprised us that she did. It was a bill that passed unanimously in the House and Senate. As you all know, we've done a lot of work on corrections reform. And I have 3 prisons in my district, Alva, Helena, and Fort Supply. It's been an issue for 12 years that I've been very interested in and engaged on how we solve this crisis in our prisons of being 120% of capacity, 60% staffed on any given day. We really have made some progress the last couple of years on injecting some common sense and some fairness into the system, and making sure that violent criminals, that we have space to house our most violent criminals.
What was her reasoning for vetoing it, Jim?
Well,
Her
her reason for vetoing it was that there wasn't any evidence to show that keeping violent offenders in prison a little longer affected public safety. It was going to cost more money keeping more people locked up. Potentially they could be locked up. What the bill did, that she vetoed, required a parole hearing for inmates that are in on 85% crime. So these are violent, these are murderers, child molesters, rapists. They're the most violent offenders in our prisons. What many of them do is they just wait till the end of their sentence, and they don't go to a parole hearing because they don't want to be accountable to anyone. They want to just walk out and not be supervised, not be accountable to anyone. The governor changed her policy last year with an executive order and required DOC to start awarding good time credits to these inmates from the beginning. The previous policy had been once they get to 85%, then they can start applying their good time credits. So because we've done a lot of work on reform, we've been trying to make progress, but we wanted to ensure public safety. This bill would have mandated a parole hearing before the governor's appointees on the parole board that she appoints to decide whether these inmates are ready to be released or if they should be supervised or they need to stay in prison a little longer. And so I don't disagree with her veto message that might have resulted in more inmates staying in prison longer. That was the point. If the governor's parole board that she appoints reviews these inmates and says these violent offenders are not ready to be released into society, then her parole board should be able to make that decision. And so that's something we're going to be looking at this interim, and she has said it's something she's willing to consider next year. Yes, it could have resulted in more people being locked up, which is an increased cost, but that's why we have prisons for our most violent offenders, and that's the point. So just a little bit about that issue from last week. Just very quickly on the budget, historic, challenging budget situation for the state, $1.3 billion less to build our budget this year than what we had last year, and I'm preaching to the choir because you're living it in Northwest Oklahoma, and particularly in this part of Northwest Oklahoma with the oil bust. And we've all seen what has happened. We've had friends and neighbors who have lost their jobs. We've now had over 18,000 Oklahomans who have lost their jobs, and these were good jobs. It's not just the gross production tax on oil, it's the income tax from people that had great jobs in the oil field. It's the sales tax when they spend that money. It's the motor vehicle collections when they buy a new pickup or a new car. It affects every area of our tax collection. And then when you add the wheat price and the oil price on top of that, it really is the perfect storm. But all of that said, $1.3 billion less, we were able to prioritize, which is what Republicans said when we got the majorities. We would prioritize the core functions of government, things like education, things like public safety, health care, transportation. Those would be our priorities. And we were able to build a budget that reflected the priorities, I think, of Oklahomans. We were able to stop the provider rate cuts to hospitals and nursing homes and keep hospitals and nursing homes from closing, which was a critical issue, probably the most important issue that we dealt with this session. We were able to address that issue. Some small increases to mental health and substance abuse services and DHS and criminal appeals. We passed a budget that didn't cut schools. I think that's a significant thing when you look at the percentage of our budget. Over half is spent on education, and over a third is spent on public schools, pre-K through 12th grade schools. And to pass a budget that did not cut schools was incredibly significant. I don't think what they were expecting. Now, there was a revenue failure in the budget we passed last year. Not enough money came in to meet that, and so there was a reduction across the board to our agencies. But the legislature made the decision to use some of the rainy day money to backfill that, which brought down what would have been a 7% cut to schools down to around 4%, I think, Senator, that we ended up with. And we also backfilled the corrections cut. With the crisis we have there, they weren't going to have the ability to even meet payroll for the end of the year, and so we backfilled those as well, and were able to pass a budget that didn't cut corrections. A lot of people don't realize Governor Brad Henry was by my office this session, and we were talking about the last downturn, federal stimulus dollars that came to the states and other things that happened. But the year after the stimulus dollars ran out, Oklahoma was really in a tough position financially. That was the last time the legislature passed and the governor signed a budget that cut schools. There's this thought out there that somehow there's been all these votes to cut funding for schools, and it's simply not true. Governor Henry sat in my office. He said, "You know the last governor that signed a budget that cut schools, don't you?" And I said, "Oh, I remember well." He said, "It was the toughest thing I ever did." But it was Governor Brad Henry, the last governor that actually signed a budget, had to. We didn't have the revenue to keep from doing it. That's the last time a vote was taken on a budget and the governor signed a budget that cut schools. We made a lot of progress on education in terms of the policy front, testing changes, graduation requirement changes, teacher evaluations, those types of things. And as I mentioned, I think the public safety measures, and then also the autism-related insurance issue was another one that was addressed this session as well. A lot of questions about the alcohol modernization state question that will be on your ballot. to allow the sale of wine in grocery stores and some other changes on beer and going to strong beer. That will be on the ballot in November for voters to consider. What I can tell you is if it passes, you will not be able to go to Alva's Market the next day and buy your wine because that won't go into effect until 2018. So don't run into the market and think it's going to be there very, very soon. The wholesalers wanted some provisions in place to, it's going to change their business model and they wanted some time to implement. So if that state question passes, it will go into effect in 2018 to give a couple-year period for the details to be worked out. I mentioned corrections reform, and the warden is here, and a lot of things that we've been working on will impact offenders at Bill Johnson. One of the things that we did this session was increase the amount of time that a court can modify a sentence that was imposed on an offender. Currently, they can go back 24 months and make changes. We changed that to 60 months to allow a court to go back and revisit a sentence on an offender, which I think is important as well as things change and they need to review some of those sentences. We gave district attorneys discretion to file charges as misdemeanors instead of being forced to file felony offenses automatically. Again, this is not for 85% crimes. This is for nonviolent crimes, but giving more discretion to district attorneys, just as we did to judges last year on charges and sentencing. And we also authorized the court to be able to order the Department of Public Safety to waive any requirement that fines and court costs be satisfied before a person can get a driver's license. We set a lot of these inmates up to fail. We don't allow them to get a driver's license until they've paid off all of their costs. But in Oklahoma, how are you going to get to work to get to that job to make the money to pay back the victims or the costs? And so we've set up a provisional driver's license program to allow them. That doesn't mean they can go to the bar on Saturday night. It means they can drive to work and from work, make money to pay back victims and pay back the state. And I think that was an important change as well. Some changes in drug courts to allow drug courts to waive some of the fees and costs for a person who successfully completes drug court. Again, incentivizing someone to successfully complete these rehabilitation programs, I think that's significant, but not setting them up to be a financial hardship where they can't support their families and they end up back in the life of crime that led them to prison in the first place. I mentioned the bill the governor vetoed, and then another bill that I was privileged to carry this year would allow judges to waive court costs and fines and fees for individuals who have completed their prison sentence. They complied with all of their probation requirements, all of their supervision requirements. They've made timely payments on all of their costs for 2 years. At that point, if the court says, you've done everything we've asked you to do, we're going to waive some of these costs as an incentive, I think was significant as well. It allows offenders to consolidate if they owe more than in one county. They can consolidate that to just go to one county courthouse and pay rather than having to travel to 2 or 3 different counties if that's the case. And it allows an offender 6 months from being released from prison to have to start making those payments. It gives them time to find a place to live, to find a job, to find a car, to get a driver's license. All of those things they're going to need to be successful to pay us back as a state or as victims of crime. And so I think some significant changes there. Some agency consolidation that happened as a result of the budget. The Will Rogers Memorial in Claremore will be consolidated into the Historical Society. The Scenic Rivers Commission, I think Senator was the other one that we consolidated into GRDA. So some things like that happened this year in terms of moving some of the smaller agencies under some of the bigger ones for some cost savings as well. I mentioned end of instruction exams that will be ended and replaced with a new system. The Senate and House in Washington passed a new federal education law recently, which has changed what we do. A lot of the tests that we give in schools are mandated at the federal level, and so we will now reduce, as the federal government has reduced those requirements, we will follow suit, and we will only test what we're required from the federal government to test, with one exception. We made a decision that U.S. history, even though the federal education bill doesn't require U.S. history to be tested, we made a decision in Oklahoma that U.S. history was important and should be tested, and so we have included that as a state-mandated test that will have to be offered in U.S. history, and so I think that's important. On the earthquake front, and I know things have kind of settled down. Fortunately, on that front, the Corporation Commission has done a lot of good work on getting ahead of that issue. But when the Commission started taking action, there was some question in an oil company that challenged the Corporation Commission's authority to be able to address emergency situations and issues that fall under their purview. So we passed a bill the governor signed this year that made it perfectly clear, in no uncertain terms, the Corporation Commission is the authority that deals with these entities, and they have full authority in emergency situations to take whatever action they deem necessary to protect the public. And I think that was a reasonable plan there to make sure that the Corporation Commission, elected by the people of the state, are the ones that are making those decisions. We did pass a resolution that will affect Senator Inhofe and others if this happens, to hopefully give him more help to get the federal budget under control. We have joined, this is something that Senator Coburn has kind of made his new life's work, is a balanced budget amendment, and Oklahoma joined that effort this year with passage of that. There's also a state question that will be on your ballot dealing with the Ten Commandments. You may remember that the Oklahoma Supreme Court removed the Ten Commandment monument from the state capitol grounds. There's a state question that will modify the Constitution to enable the Ten Commandments to go back, and that will be on your ballot as well. Some changes, I know Northwest Family Services may be interested, but some changes on past due court-ordered child support payments. We were charging a 10% interest rate. When you get in a hole and at 10%, it just keeps getting bigger. That money's not getting to help children where it needs to go, and so we've changed that policy to a 2% rate to hopefully get the dollars to where they need to go to these children and these families. Healthcare front, nurse licensure reciprocity to allow nurses to cross state lines. If they recognize our nursing license, we'll recognize theirs, and hopefully help with the shortage in the area of healthcare. Criminal justice, DNA, felony arrest. We were one of the last states to not take a DNA sample when someone's arrested for a felony. That bill was passed and signed by the governor this year. Not only a way to solve unsolved crimes, but a way to exonerate innocent people that have been imprisoned for something that they didn't do, and then someone's arrested that did that crime. That sample matches up. A way to exonerate innocent people as well as hopefully solve unsolved crimes, and that was signed into law this year as well. And also a change, as you know, we now have an online system for insurance verification for law enforcement. Most law enforcement have computers in their vehicles. They can check and see if you have insurance. We passed a bill that says if you don't have that security verification card with you, if they can verify it online, then you're not going to get a ticket for not having it. That will suffice. If it shows up in the computer that you're insured, then you're set. And then also on that same front, we pay an exorbitant amount for uninsured drivers in Oklahoma. Our insurance costs are higher. Our uninsured motorist costs are higher. And one of the changes that we made will authorize district attorneys to set up a scanning system to scan tags, match that up with the insurance, and make sure that the cars that are on the road are actually insured, which will bring down insurance costs for all of us as we reduce the number of uninsured motorists on the road. City manager and the senator were talking about the internet sales tax issue. We were working on a state level as the Congress works on this issue at the federal level, but our decision in Oklahoma was simply to do a notification system. When you buy things online from an entity that's not in Oklahoma, hiring Oklahomans, invested here, it's not in this state, we passed a bill that says that if you buy something, that company now has to send you a report at the end of the calendar year of how much you bought, and that you owe use tax on that amount. They're not going to collect it. Now, if they choose to collect it and remit, they don't have to send these reports out. But under this new law, you will get a report at the end of the year if you bought, $337 worth of items from an out-of-state internet service. You will get a report that says you bought this much, you owe use tax to the state of Oklahoma. Not going to collect it unless that entity, and some choose to do that, some choose to collect it, others don't. But hopefully to level the playing field. But it's simply an informational way to let you know what you may owe. Only about 4% of Oklahomans pay use tax on items that they buy on the internet, and it is an issue for our cities. But our decision was to deal with it that way rather than mandating what some states have looked at doing. Revenue stabilization, we have the rainy day fund. We are in a tough situation because of the oil bust. One of the decisions we made this year was to set up a second fund that will smooth out gross production collections. When oil is high and gross production collections increase, that money will be set aside in a revenue stabilization fund to hopefully help us avert some of what we're going through now and to learn from some of this so that in the future hopefully it won't be as challenging as well. And then lastly, I know a lot of businesses, you have expressed concern about other businesses that are collecting sales tax for the state and keeping it, that are basically cheating, that are not remitting those taxes, while those of you, probably all of you in this room that are in business, follow the rules. You collect sales tax and you remit it. The Tax Commission has simply not had the enforcement mechanism to go out and do that, to make sure that, and particularly in the urban areas, those people that are collecting sales tax and not remitting it, it's not fair to those of you. And so we've given the Tax Commission the resources to do more work in that area on compliance. For those of you who like to drive fast, the senator flies, so you don't have to worry about this, but we did remove from statute the mandatory speed limits and gave that authority to the Department of Transportation to set speed limits based on engineering studies, traffic studies. There may be a rural stretch of highway with shoulders that it makes sense to have a 70 or 75 mile speed limit, and there may be a similar stretch in an urban area that it needs to be 45 or 50. The department didn't have the luxury of being able to adjust. There were mandated speed limits that they couldn't change. We simply took that out of statute and will allow the department to set those as they see fit across the state. And on the subject of transportation, and Senator Marlatt will probably talk more about this, we did end up, we've made great progress in the area of transportation, but we did that because we had to. For 20 years, the Department of Transportation budget in Oklahoma, and Senator Inhofe's done amazing work to help us on this project, working with Gary Ridley and others here in Oklahoma on transportation. We've made amazing progress, but because we had to. 1984, ODOT's budget was $200 million. In 2004, when I was elected, ODOT's budget was $200 million. It didn't change for 20 years. We have now spent, all of us in this room collectively, have spent $3 billion $3 billion in the last 9 years on roads and bridges. $2 billion on state roads and bridges, another $1 billion, never been done before, on county road and bridge construction. $3 billion. It's cost more than it should have if it had been managed properly when the Democrats had majorities, but it was critically important that we do that. We've been paying cash for a lot of those, and we get dinged by the bond advisors that we're not using low interest bonds. And so this year, to help with the budget, the Department of Transportation offered $200 million in cash back into the budget if we then would allow them to bond those projects with low interest bonds. And we did that. $200 million that will be bonded. But that's something I think you all need to know and be proud of. Yes, it has, just like the Capitol restoration and other things, it's cost more than it should have if it had been managed properly. But we've made great progress, and it's what you all have done, not just for economic development to have good roads and bridges, but public safety, the cable barriers that have saved lives and prevented head-on collisions where mom or dad actually makes it home and has dinner with their family tonight. That's important. The shoulder that keeps the teen driver on a rainy day from hitting a soft shoulder and rolling their vehicle and being killed in a fatality accident. The shoulder that you put on that road has allowed those young people to make that mistake, come right back on the road, and never know the difference, and they're on a college campus somewhere today. That's what you've done. It's not anything that Jeff Hickman or Bryce Marlatt did. It's what you did as the taxpayers of this state. It's taken money away from other things, but it was critically important that it be done, and it couldn't have happened without Jim Inhofe's help in Washington to get the federal dollars to match and get the highway bill to continue to be on track. And very, very critical work that he's done, and we've done this together, and something that I think that everyone in the room can be proud of. I'll stop there, Senator, and let you hit some of the high points on the Senate side, and we'll have answers.
I think you've about touched on everything, Mr. Speaker. I do want to say, I thought last time was our last eggs and issues in Alva, but Alex, are we finished? Is this our last eggs and issues in Alva? Okay. This is officially the Speaker's last eggs and issues in Alva. And, you don't have to jump for joy, but it's been great serving with the Speaker. He's done a tremendous job. First Speaker from Northwest Oklahoma, if I'm correct, right? And now we're anticipating a Speaker from Southeast Oklahoma. The surprise of that is it's a Republican from Southeast Oklahoma who's going to be the Speaker. That didn't happen back in your day in the House. So that is a result of a lot of work from a lot of different people. Jerry Buchanan was a big part of that in his efforts across the state of the Republican Party. So, but Speaker Hickman's done a tremendous job. The person who suffered the most is Jana, and we appreciate her willingness to lend you to the state for, I'd like to say a couple months out of the year, but it turned into a bigger job than that. But I appreciate your service. You've done a tremendous job. you're going to be sorely missed, and we appreciate everything you've done for this part of the state. And you will have to report to the parole board frequently. Make sure you're doing all right. I won't drag it out too long. He pretty much covered about everything as far as the budget goes. Obviously, it was a tough year. Everybody wanted to talk about how difficult it was going to be, and we were talking about 25% cuts to Medicaid, 15% cuts to education. Everything works out at the end, guys. It all works out. We were able to manage through that. As far as I was concerned, as far as the majority of the Senate was concerned, and I think when you look at the budget, the House was the same way. Hey, look, we've got some areas that we got to take care of people. We got health care, we got education, we got transportation, we got public safety. And when you look at what we did, we said, all right, those are the core functions of government, and we're going to make sure those are taken care of. And if your name is not in that list, then look out, because you're going to have some cuts. And that's kind of how it turned out. As far as the transportation side of it, the Speaker's exactly right. We're fixing a lot of things budget-wise and transportation-wise, and now the Capitol. Speaker Hickman and I passed a bond issue for the Capitol 2 years ago. We had to do another one this year, but we are fixing a lot of poor management for years and years in the state of Oklahoma. We wouldn't be having to invest the way that we invest in transportation had it been managed properly over the years. Years ago, whenever I was working for Senator Inhofe, before he got to the Senate actually, or before I got to the Senate, whenever you took over and drafted the first highway bill you drafted, we were a donor state in the state of Oklahoma. In other words, like every dollar we sent to the feds in the state of Oklahoma, we got what, 91 or 92 cents back. We're now a receiver state. It's because of the work he's done there. Because of that, the state is also willing to invest their part and do our part. So the 8-year plan was kept intact. We're going to continue with the 8-year plan. This last one, we actually got an extra $26 million from the feds on the last reauthorization bill. So that's a dramatic help as far as where we're going to be on transportation. So we're going to stay where we're at there. The Capitol, yes, we've had to do a bond issue. Nobody thinks I don't like borrowing money. It's not a sexy deal at all, but it's something that you got to do. We've got to maintain the assets. These are your assets we're talking about, and that's an image that people see. And people don't realize how many people come to our state capitol, and we've got one of the most beautiful ones in the country. However, we do have, they found some possums in the basement here about 8 months ago, and somebody said, I wonder how those possums got in there. And I said, yeah, you don't realize possums aren't walking in the front door; they're living in the Capitol. And sewage in the basement and different things like that. So maintaining the structure and maintaining its integrity is important. That's been ignored for years and years. As far as the budget, a couple of things that the Speaker didn't touch on is the ad valorem reimbursement fund, which is what we reimburse to our counties, our schools for different industries that don't pay an ad valorem tax. The state will go in and reimburse that. For years, that wasn't funded, and it hurt our mainly rural Oklahoma. We were able to put the $47 million in there to make that whole, so our schools aren't going to suffer, and counties as far as that. Ending of the EOI, the end of instruction exam, teachers, school boards from all across the state told us how important that was. We responded, we were able to do that. Another deal on public safety, bill that I passed, and Biggs in the House was the House author. It's called Kristen's Law. Came from an acquaintance of mine, but who had been through domestic violence. She started explaining to me what had happened, and started talking to me about some of the research she had done with domestic violence. And we met with a couple of groups. It turns out domestic violence is a huge issue in Oklahoma. Obviously, it's a huge issue all across the country, but Oklahoma is a very, very devastating issue. And the more times that domestic violence happens, the more likely there is to be a death. Usually, by the third time, it's escalated to where there's possibly death, and by the fourth time, the odds really shoot up that there will be a death. So currently what happens is, the way the current law was before we changed it, you couldn't be prosecuted with a felony for domestic violence unless it happened 3 times to the same person in a 12-month period. Well, the research shows that 3rd time it's very, very dangerous. So what we did is we took the 12-month period out and said 2 times. If you want to commit domestic violence 2 times, then the 2nd time you can be charged with a felony. Doesn't matter if it's 11 months or 12 months and 1 day, or 3 years. If it happens twice, the district attorney can prosecute with a felony, which is very important. What my wife does to me is discipline. It's not domestic abuse, but sometimes it's whacked upside the head. But that was a huge deal. One of the things we got hit on a lot, is the tax cuts. Why are we're in this budget deal? Why aren't we rolling back the tax cuts? Why aren't we rolling back the tax cuts? Well, politically, it just wasn't an option. I don't know how the vote would have came out in the Senate. That's got to start in the House, and it was a non-starter. I mean, the speaker could have worked on it all session. We'd still be in session. The votes were not there to roll back those tax cuts. Not to mention, all the thoughts are, and I feel like we're trying to get the truth out there now. All the thoughts, people keep saying, well, you Republicans cut taxes and we lose all these revenues. Well, when I went to the Senate, we had a $6.1 billion budget. But if you look back in 2005, it was a $5 billion budget with a 7% income tax. 2 years ago, $7.1 billion budget with 5.25. So higher taxes is not necessarily a direct correlation with higher revenues. But to be fair, the largest tax cut that was ever done in the state of Oklahoma was done under Democrat control, with Democrat leadership voting for it all, and a Democrat governor signing it. And that was when we went from 7 to 625, and then triggers that took it down to 525. So the 7 to 625 was done before we were there, or actually you were there. Yeah. But it was done under Democrat leadership, and so this is not a Republican Democrat issue. It's this is an issue that on the budget the times change, and it's not just income tax. Income tax issue was $160 million out of a $1.3 billion hole. It's what the speaker said. You lose 18,000 jobs. People are taking 30, 40, 50% cuts in pay. That means they quit spending money. Corporate taxes go down. It's a huge impact. But guys, we're from Oklahoma. We get through these things, but we have fundamentally, I believe this has given us an opportunity to fundamentally change how we manage our state, and we've started down that road. A lot of the tax credit reforms that we put in place this year are going to put us on a good foothold to have good management and better structure as far as how we operate our state government moving forward. Some of the transparency issues that we put in place, Senator Treat passed a bill that requires OMS to put on their public information site how they're spending, how the state is also spending federal dollars that come through the state, because a lot of people want to say, well, look at what you're doing here, look at what you're doing here. Well, you know what, we may have cut this agency a certain amount because we got federal dollars, that are backfilling that. And so we want transparency on not just how our money is being spent across the state of Oklahoma, but how federal dollars are being spent across the state of Oklahoma. Because when you look at the federal or the state budget, we get to appropriate $6.7 billion this year. The amount of revenue that comes in when you add the apportionments, which is money that we never see, money that is state revenues that is apportioned to go to a certain area, it bypasses the appropriators. And then also the federal money, we're over $20 $20 million or $20 billion in revenues that the state sees. We're only appropriating 6.7. So some of the reform changes and different things like that are going to be great as far as us moving forward. Senator, great to see you here. Jerry, great to see you here. Senator talks about how he flies all over. I got to spend a lot of time with him in planes. He's got one called the Rocket that.
You were never in that, were you?
No, but he was talking about flying it upside down. But I was in your twin one time, and for some reason he picked me up in Perry, and my pickup was there. And on our way back, he was on our way back to Tulsa, and everybody who works for the senator has a story where with an airplane, and I said he was flying along, and I said, Senator, there's the airport, and he said, yeah, and he turns it, and we bank like this, and I think I turned white face, and as I'm looking up at him, he looks at me very seriously and says, I can roll it on over if you'd like. And I said, no, Senator. He's a great pilot, and great to have you out here. Jerry, great to have you out here as well.
Next, we'll have Jeremy Bennett with Congressman Lucas's office. Say a couple words.
I'll just say hi to everyone. It's good to see you. I think the senator probably touched on everything that we would touch on. I'd say look forward in the next couple of weeks. You'll see a lot of these appropriation bills. That's where the House and the Senate are focusing on right now, is a lot of appropriation bills. So I know the House has passed 3. They've got several more coming up. Next week, the Congressman, as the Vice Chairman of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, will be hosting EPA's administrator in there. So they will be encouraging her to implement policies that have a strong belief in sound science. So look forward to that. I know the senator always enjoys getting to speak with her as well. So those are some issues that are kind of going on at the federal level, but I won't take long. I'll stay around too as well, so if anyone has any questions for me, I can answer them.